Did you know that Belgium, China, Japan and the Netherlands all have laws that specifically target loot boxes in some way, shape or form? Did you also know that these countries have strict gambling laws, with most gambling being banned in Japan and all forms of gambling being banned in China? There's no way these two things are related, right? Like, when you buy a loot box, or a card pack, or a key to open a crate, you are purchasing the chance to get some sort of reward that you, the player, wants. In some games, like Counter-Strike and Team Fortress, these rewards can literally have real-world monetary value due to the trading system that exists in these games. So when you do get really lucky with your loot box, you can actually make your money back, or even make a profit. And it doesn't take a rocket scientist to compare this to this. Which is why many people have made this comparison. Governments all around the world are slowly but surely catching on to the fact that there are games marketed towards children that sell pre-packaged gambling addictions to their user base. And they want to do something about it. And I think more and more as time goes on, consumers want to do something about it too. Because we can see that it's predatory. We can see that it's designed to try and con us out of money in sneaky and insidious ways. So today, we're going to try and take a look at some of the practices that the gaming industry has been using for a really long time. Some of these practices are great, but the ones we're going to talk about aren't great. I also have a much longer and more detailed video talking about similar topics in the top right. But let's get on to the core reason why loot boxes are so bad. The main reason, when you boil it down to one simple aspect, is that loot boxes obscure the consumer's understanding of the value of what they are purchasing. This is the #1 goal of a game's microtransactions. They want it to be hard to understand how valuable the thing you are trying to buy truly is, because that way, your value of it in your head is going to be how you dictate how much money you're willing to spend on it. If I want this skin, I can't just buy it from the in-game store. I have to buy a loot box that has a random chance to give me the thing I want. If I could just buy it, the game would essentially be telling me precisely how valuable that one particular skin is. But instead, there is no precise designated value to the skin. There is only the price of a single loot box. That allows the player to personally come up with a value for such an item in their head. And chances are, that value in their head is much higher than it realistically should be, because it's obscured by the random element of a loot box. So that player who has a really higher perceived value of the skin in their head is much more willing to spend close to that perceived value to obtain the skin. And depending on the type of person that player is, it can literally be hundreds of dollars. If the company just sold that skin in an in-game store for $8, that player would have spent $8. The other problem with loot boxes is, of course, the part about gambling. Because oh boy, as much as some people don't see the significance of this, gambling can be highly addictive. There's a reason that most gambling sites have these banners and stickers and stuff somewhere on the site. It's supposed to be clearly labelled as gambling, so that you know what you're getting into, and for good reason. But loot boxes have no such limitation, making it much easier to sink into without even realising it. But let's go back a little bit. Back to that whole obscuring the consumer's understanding of the value of what they're purchasing thing. Because loot boxes might be the most infamous and obvious example of this, but they're not the only way that it's done. The one that gets me riled up the most is in-game currencies. I'm not buying the character or the skin itself. I'm buying the in-game currency that purchases said skin or character. So suddenly I'm not spending the Queen's Great Imperial British Pounds, I'm instead spending silly Monopoly money that is completely detached from reality. And notice how spending £7.50 gets you 1,100 Monopoly money, but spending £15 gets you 2,250. That's double the real world cost for more than double the funny Monopoly money. This is very intentional. This makes it just that much harder to have a realistic understanding of what you are actually purchasing from the in-game shop, and how much it actually costs in real-world currency. Because it's hard to spend £15, but what the fuck is an Oryx cell? I can spend those all day. This is a ploy to make you spend more money on the game, by detaching it from reality and from the real-world currency that you actually use in your day-to-day life. There's of course a ton of other ways that this is done, but I'll just talk about one last one that seems to have become more and more popular over the last few years. The Battle Pass. This is arguably the most value for money that you're going to get from any microtransactions, because you get quite a lot of stuff for your money. But there's a catch. Your time. How much time you have available to spend playing the game will directly impact how much of this value for money you can actually acquire. The other purpose of the Battle Pass is to try and foster an addiction in their player base. If a player spends $10 on a Battle Pass, then they might feel like they have to come back to the game over and over again to get their money's worth. And while they're doing this, a little progression system is drip feeding them rewards as they play. The pass is designed to be addictive, to be that hook that keeps you coming back. And this won't work on everyone. Some people will be completely unfazed by it, but only a small percentage need to become hooked for it to be a beneficial thing to the company. Because long-term players buy even more stuff in the store than short-term ones. Just as long as you can keep them playing, you can keep getting them spending money. Now, if this video seems a bit bleak to you, then it's because it kind of is, so sorry about that. But it's not all doom and gloom. Because if you think all of this is terrible, and you want all of these things gone from the industry, then I have one really simple piece of advice for you. Don't spend a single penny. If you see a cool skin sold at a fair price that isn't in a loot box, that has a decently well-defined value, then by all means, buy it. But don't buy loot boxes. Don't buy battle passes. If you think the microtransactions in your game of choice are predatory in some way, then don't buy them. Because the only language that million-dollar marketing teams are going to listen to is money. If it hurts their wallets, they will have to change their ways. So if you want things to change, don't spend a single dime. Thanks for watching.